Morning peeps, I'm back. I'll just do this video and then I shall be spending a day revising my chess ready for my tournament tomorrow. I've had a good night's sleep and we can talk a bit more about FPL and this week, because I think today we'll talk a bit about playstyles. We'll do that later on and have a look at what to do with Jockarez and talk a bit about Chelsea and Wolves as well, because that kind of comes into playstyles a little bit. So we'll do all those things and then we might end on another game of 1 minute chess. People seem to enjoy that, and people have been asking what chess I use, what service, and I use Lichess, lichess.org rather than chess.com, because it's all free, open source, and just as good. So anyway, let's have a look. So Jockarez, we've had some good news, and the good news is that he's now confirmed out until after the international break. You know, I'd much rather he wasn't confirmed out, but it's good to have some certainty, because normally with Arteta you don't get any, and not knowing would have been pretty frustrating. So now I know exactly what's involved. I can plan what I'm going to do. Now, if we look at get this beastly thing up that everyone shows, this is the clean sheet odds and everything for this week and the projected goals. We can see Chelsea are projected to get the most goals. Wolves only have an 11% chance of a clean sheet. So you can imagine Chelsea assets would be quite useful for this week, wouldn't they? Unfortunately, I sold mine last week. Anyway, when we got Arsenal, Man City, and all the usual suspects. So, let's first address the issue of João Pedro. Like I said last night, he hadn't even had a shot for like 5, 6, 7 weeks. His goal was a tap-in. Yes, he could get another tap-in against Wolves. But the international break's coming up. He could go away with Brazil. Chelsea have the early kickoff for the game week 11 match against Burnley. So selections are up in the air. The same applies to Enzo Fernandez, who could well be away with Argentina. So it is quite tricky. And let's talk about play styles now, shall we? Because there are a lot of managers in my position who would take a hit this week, and they'd bring in João Pedro and they'd bring in Enzo Fernandez or Esteval, who's the one I'd be bringing in personally if I thought he was going to start. If I heard he was starting, I would definitely get Esteval. There's other good options, you know, like Pedro Neto, even Garnacho against Wolves. So I could do that. I've got too many Chelsea, but a manager that takes risks might well take a -4 and hope that Chelsea get 4 or 5 goals. You know, they did batter West Ham by 5 goals earlier in the season. So you could do that. But I'm ruling out João Pedro, because part of the reason I got rid of him was because I want to change my structure. So I'm ruling him out for the same reasons I'm ruling out Arteta. And I'm actually going for somebody who doesn't even have a really good fixture this week, but is part of long-term plans. And that is Thiago. You know, he's not a sexy pick, Thiago, is he? Plays for Brentford. But the good thing is, he's like their only striker. They don't have Europe, and he's doing pretty well. Now, if you go and have a look at expected goals in Understat, this is the first page. So these are the best players in terms of expected goals this season. And you can see Haaland's well clear. He's actually scored 13. Should have had 10.5 according to this. Obviously a very good striker. Second is Mateta, who should have had like 8.5, but has only got 6. So he's obviously not quite as good a striker because he doesn't kind of score as many as he possibly should given the amount of chances he's got. But he is getting a lot of chances. So he's obviously good, you know, Haaland, Mateta. But look who's third on the list, and it's Thiago. You know, so he's expected to have scored 6 goals, and that's exactly what he has scored. And he's on penalties. But even if you take out penalties and go with excluding penalties per 90, he's still on the front page. So he's obviously a decent option according to the stats. Like I said, he plays for Brentford. He's the only striker there. Visser did well at Brentford last season. The play style Brentford are playing suits the striker scoring goals. And at 6.2 million, he doesn't block what I want to do in the future. So if I get Thiago this week, next week I can take out Reinders and bring in Semenyo, for example, who's 8.1. I could bring in Semenyo next week for his fantastic run of fixtures. We'll go forward to game week 12, home to West Ham, game week 12. So I could get him. I wouldn't want Bumo because Bumo goes to AFCON. I've already got Ndai and Sarr, both of whom go to AFCON. I could get Cunha. All those players become available. Eza, Gakpo, all an option. However, if I were to go instead of Thiago and get Mateta, who you'd think would be the must-have according to everybody. So if I got Mateta, then next week I come to take out Reinders. And it's not so simple. Not so simple. I only have 6.6 million to spend, which rules me out of a hell of a lot of players, to be honest with you, because I'm going to have to take out Ndai in a few weeks. I want a 6.5. So, as you can see, Thiago frees up an awful lot of money to advance my team next week, whereas Mateta doesn't. Or João Pedro doesn't. I mean, FPL Nightmare pointed out to me that I could get João Pedro and Rice for a hit this week, which would be a reasonable move, I think. Would be a reasonable move. But like I said, you know, João Pedro's going off to Brazil probably. This is his great fixture. Then they got Arsenal, I think, after that. So, and he hasn't performed in recent weeks, has he? So I'm going to bite the bullet and just get Thiago in. Now, obviously, this week, going into this week with no Chelsea attackers, when they're predicted to get the most points, is scary. But Chelsea haven't done great against a low block. And in terms of Wolves away from home, let's go and have a look. Game week, let's have a look. Where are we? We've got a game week 2. They're away at Bournemouth. They lost 1-0. Game week 4, they're away at Newcastle. They lost 1-0. Game week 6, they were away at Tottenham, 1 each. Game week 8, away at Sunderland, they lost 2-0. So you look at that, the most they've conceded away from home is 2-0. They've had pretty strong opponents, you know, Tottenham, Newcastle. All those teams would have been expected to batter Wolves. And yet it didn't materialise. So there's no guarantee that Chelsea batter Wolves. I mean, they've had a few good results. You know, they put 3 past Forest, Chelsea. They put 5 past West Ham. But then they got beaten at home by Brighton. And, you know, so they're a bit inconsistent. And they are obviously desirable options this week. You know, if I was on a free hit, I would have 3 Chelsea players in. But when you're planning your team, and I'm like a long-term planner, when you're planning your team, then you really can't be too swayed by what's happening this week. You know, who's to say that Thiago doesn't score a goal at home to Newcastle? Obviously less chance probably than Pedro scoring a goal. But in the long term for my team, I think Thiago is a better option, you know, in that it will allow me to have a much better player next week than otherwise would be the case. Now, of course, I could actually take a hit this week and get somebody in now, but it's not ideal this week. Not ideal. Like if I got Semenyo away at Villa, not ideal. Actually, they're not that fantastic, Bournemouth fixtures. I know that West Ham game's good, but away to Sunderland is now, it's not good. It's not good. Everton can defend. Then Chelsea away at Man United. So they're not super fantastic. So there are a lot of other options I can go for next week. Gakpo in particular, look at that. Forest, West Ham, Sunderland. Would probably be a better bet in my opinion. So I might well go with Gakpo. But either of them require me to have Thiago rather than João Pedro or Mateta. So in terms of fixtures, they look the best bets. And the other flyer is Cunha. Cunha is an option as well. Also decent fixtures. Other than that, I'm not really seeing many alternatives. Well, you could argue that Rodgers could come into the equation. Another one with decent fixtures. You know, as for Rice, I think he is going to keep ticking along. You know, he is a decent option, I think. So, yeah, that's about it in terms of that. So I'm thinking, because I've got this chess tournament, I am just going to get Thiago. I'll wait, but I'll just get Thiago. I won't take a hit. The good news is that the game against Chelsea starts exactly the same time as my round 3 match in the chess. So I'm going to be fully focused on chess, not even going to know. I'm not going to suffer, basically, with in real time watching Chelsea without any of their attacking assets, which is good. So let's have a quick look at other things that have been going on Reddit. Actually, defensively, I have to choose between starting Senesi, Rodon, or Virgil van Dijk. And according to this, Leeds have a better chance of a clean sheet than Bournemouth. But I think most people would start Senesi over Rodon, despite that slight difference. Because Senesi, I think, does have more chance of defensive contributions. Again, away at Villa, you'd be very surprised if Senesi doesn't get defensive contributions, whereas Rodon, he is a bit hit and miss, isn't he? Virgil van Dijk, I mean, Liverpool in the big fixtures. I mean, it's hard to see them keeping a clean sheet against Man City, isn't it? It is difficult. I mean, they're only 14% to do it. Only 14%. So, but he could pop up with an attacking return. But I'm thinking he's on my bench, but I'm tossing up whether to actually put him ahead of Rodon on my bench in the unlikely event he's needed. Although Njai is now yellow flagged. If you own Anderson is actually predicted to have a better chance of a clean sheet than Senesi this week. So people choosing between Senesi and Anderson have a bit of a decision to make. Quite a tricky one. I mean, you'd think they'd both get defensive contributions, but I guess Senesi does have a slightly higher chance of them. Right, what else is going on Reddit? Let's have a look. Someone ranting about how rubbish the site is. I mean, I don't spend hardly any... I don't know about you guys, but I don't spend hardly any time on the official site. You know, I'm using, like, this FPL team the whole time. I mean, I only go on the site now to make my transfer, because it's just rubbish, isn't it? It looks rubbish and hopeless. Oh, what happened to game week 10 with Wolves? Oh, we did lose 3-0. Oh, I forgot that one. So we lost 3-0 away in their last match against Fulham. So that's not good, is it? Which would indicate that Wolves are actually getting worse. For some reason, I thought game week 10 was this week. So, yeah, maybe we are getting worse. So it is a bit scary. I must admit, it is a bit scary not having any Chelsea attackers this week. But the way Chelsea play, if you have one, there's a very good chance you miss the points because there are so many players that can score in that team. You know, you've got like Neto, Garnacho, Esteval, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, João Pedro, Cucurella, James. They all score goals. So like you could easily miss the points if you try and target the fixture. If you've already got one, it's great. But yeah, I mean, I'm not totally against people bringing in João Pedro. You know, if you've got 2 or 3 free transfers, then maybe it's worth doing. But I've only got 1, and I'm in the middle of a transition away from strikers. So it doesn't make much sense. Anyway, Pix, let's have a game of chess. Right. This is going to be my first game of the day. First game of the day. And like I said, this is called Lee Chess or Lie Chess. And all free. Anyone can go and open an account. And it's very good. You know, you get a rating for your games and all that. Most people, beginners, are going to get like a rating of 300 or 400. Right, I lose this one for sure. I say that every game, don't I? But I probably will this time. I'll be slow. Ooh. See, he pre-moved. You like anticipate what your opponent's going to do. Because if you pick the right move, it doesn't cost you any time. But he kind of chose the wrong one. I can't speak, peeps. Can't speak. This is very tense. A piece up. And when you're a piece up, you want to swap off pieces. It's harder for them to attack you. And your extra piece becomes more significant. But what am I going to do here? It's not easy to do anything. Let me think of something to do. I can't think of anything, so just moving my king backwards and forwards. Try and activate my bishop to a better spot. Oh, I pinned his queen. He can't move his queen out the way of his king. Curtains. Ah. Ooh. Another victory. Another victory, peeps. Yeah, I mean, that was a tricky one because I was a piece up, but I couldn't think of anything to do. You can see here the interface is really good. And what you can do is you click on analysis board after you've finished your game and request a computer analysis. Look, and it goes through all your game and tells you the mistakes you've made. Gives a little graph up. So it's really interesting. You can see here that it was level, pretty much until he gave his piece away, and then I had the advantage for the entire game. It says here I didn't make any inaccuracies, any mistakes, or any blunders, and my play was actually fairly similar to that of this engine, which is like better than the world champion. It's like this thing can beat Magnus Carlsen, this engine as they call them, you know, the algorithm. So he played one blunder, made one blunder and 2 inaccuracies. His was 81% accurate, mine was 97%. Anyway, back to the FPL. So I am just going to get Thiago in this week, which will leave me with 8.3 million. That can't be right. Leaves me with 2.8 in the bank, 2.8 million. And like I said, I replayed this injury with Njai. Did look like cramp. So hopefully he's okay. If not, then Rodon or Virgil van Dijk will have to play. So anyway, peeps, you know, good luck with your weekend. This will be my last video for sure, because I am flying out first thing tomorrow morning, and I won't have the, although there could be a walking video, I guess, because I'll have my phone with me. And I won't be on the lock-in or the pubcast this week, you know, but I will be back in time to watch the Sunday matches, because that's Monday here in New Zealand and I fly back on the Sunday night. So at least I better watch the end of the game week, and I should better get a game week review out next week nice and early, because I won't be working on the Monday. So cheers for now then, peeps, and I'll talk to you all later. So have a good game week.